Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to present our project here. And my name is Cesar. I'm going to be the presenter. And I would like to introduce first my colleagues. First, Juliana, Alexander, Felipe, and Arthur. So first, I would like to make a quick background about the situation nowadays and what concerns to pollution generated by aviation. What we have is we have a huge increasing demand of airplanes for the recent future. Until 2035, we are going to have 35,000 new airplanes in the market. And with that, nowadays, we are responsible for about 2% of all the pollution. And this number looks really small, but actually it is not. In the next 30 years, this number is going to grow 50%, and the tendency is to keep growing. But even with that, we have that the oil price is going to keep volatile and also elevated, not following the tendency of the market. So we really need a new source of fuel, but not only about the price, but about also the environment. So we need a greener fuel. Analyzing this problem, with this problem in mind, we have a wide range of possibilities where we can work. But we have to keep in mind that this project is a short-term project. We only have 3 years to work on, so it doesn't make sense to start to focus in a single problem, just to solve a problem, I don't know, about production, maybe about the refinery process, or about even the logistics supply. We need to create a robust and strong foundation touching all the stakeholders involved in the process. We have to work with everybody to start to prepare the market and to generate the new demand for the biofuel, so we can actually start to produce on a large scale. And with that in mind, also, we don't want to create things from the zero, from the ground. We want to use what we already have. With that in mind, we start to think, how can we touch in all the stakeholders involved in the process? What do we need for it? Actually, it's pretty simple. We just need an airport that wants to buy the biofuel, because if you need the biofuel, you need to produce the feedstock, you need to refine it, you need to transport, you need everything. So if we create the demand, implementing in an airport, we are going to touch all the stakeholders. So with that in mind, we want to implement a pilot airport within the 3 years project. And this airport is going to replace all the current fossil fuel for a drop-in jet biofuel. To support this airport, to provide all the biofuel necessary, we need to create a logistic to make the transition between the actual situation and the future, the greener future that we want. For it, and also with that in mind, we want to not only have something related with the environment, we also want something sustainable. So we want to decrease the CO2 that's environmentally friendly. We want to create a new market so it's economically affordable. And we also want to create jobs and develop the region and develop the country. So we are socially responsible. Okay, now we have to choose the airport where we are going to implement our project. So with that in mind, we created a few ideas to how to select the airport. The first one would be that the city where the airport's location has to have a positive economic development, because it doesn't make any sense to start to create something in a region or in a city where you don't have any development, it's not growing, you're not having new passengers each year. Also, the city has to provide a proximity among the airport, the feedstock production, the sugarcane mill, and the refinery to make it simple, all the logistics, because again, we have a short-term project. The airport has to be a medium-sized and has only regional flights, because we don't want to work with something too big now because of time limitation, and also with something smaller, we can provide optimization, we can analyze easier all the logistics and all the issues that can appear for us when we start to work with the project. So the chosen city was a city of Uberlândia that is located in the southeast of Brazil. The city is in the state of Minas Gerais and is right above São Paulo, the region of the country with more airspace development and with more flow of passengers per year. The city has a population of about 650,000 people and an HDI of 0.789. This is actually a really good number for Brazil, so it shows that the city is ready for the project. And just as information, The airport has a passenger capacity for a year of about 2 million people. Okay, now we have the airport, now we want to create a demand, but how? How we are going to produce the jet biofuel? First, we need to select the feedstock. Brazil is a huge country with a really good weather. It's really good to produce agriculture. And then we face a lot of options. We have, for example, sugarcane, castor bean, soy, corn, palm, and a bunch of other options. But then we decide to use the sugarcane. But why? The sugarcane is relatively cheap. The chemical process to transform the sugarcane is relatively cheap. It's called fermentation model, if compared with other options such as, I don't know, algae maybe. The production in Brazil is already really well established, what makes it really easy to scale up. As soon as the project works, in the future we are going to need more biofuel, so it's easy to scale up, and makes the price affordable because we have a huge production. The location, like I said, is in the southeast, so it's close to where we have all the passenger movement. And there are already companies such as Emyris working with technology to refine the sugarcane. Then, after choosing the feedstock and knowing where it's going to be produced, we have to know where to refine it, how we are going to refine it. So first we decide to choose where to build a small pilot sugarcane mill to produce all the jet biofuel necessary just to supply our pilot airport. So to build this small refinery just to prove that our idea is feasible, we thought that we couldn't add even more cost for the transportation of the sucrose to the sugarcane, to the refinery. The sucrose is actually the output of the sugarcane mill and the input of the refinery. So if you produce both at the same place, you don't need to transport the sucrose. And with that in mind, we start to think, okay, so where we can find the sugarcane mill? And actually, Petrobras already have a few sugarcane mills around the country. And in the city of Colina, they have the biggest sugarcane mill, and they have a high productivity of sucrose, and it's relatively close to Berlândia, what makes it even more perfect for our idea. Then, if we are going to build this small refinery, we need to know how big it has to be, right? So with that in mind, what we did was a rough estimative of how much fuel we would need just to supply Berlândia's airport. For it, we created this idea just taking the number of commercial flights in 1 year, the average fuel consumption, and the average flight time. And with that, in a really simple calculus, you can get to a rough amount of jet biofuel that you would require to make a 10% drop in biofuel. And this number is about 4.23 million gallons. Looks big, but actually it's not that big. Okay, to build this refinery, we need money, of course. So in the first year, we need about $10.5 million just to construct it. But the land, the region, is going to be provided by Petrobras. That is one of our partners in the project. They are going to work together with us. Then in the second and third years, we are going to spend about $400,000 in each year. And after this, we don't want to close the refinery. We want it to keep running and providing the biofuel and technology. So after it, Petrobras is going to be responsible for the refinery. We are going to build, start to work, and then give to Petrobras, and they are going to keep running it. And also, with the creation of the refinery, we are not only work with technology and providing the fuel, we are also going to touch in social aspects. We are going to create about 100 direct jobs and 500 indirect jobs related with the refinery itself. With that, we are going to develop the region, create more jobs, opportunities, people to study deeply the subjects, and put Brazil even more into the market. Even with all of this, we have to remember that one of the problems that we have is the price of the biofuel, right? It is really expensive if compared with the fossil fuel. So I can produce, but if it's not affordable, nobody's going to buy it, right? So what we want to do is within these 3 years of projects is to start to invest also in research to make a better way to produce the biofuel in a cheaper way. And with that, we thought, okay, we can create a center, we can start to build and put people to research there. But actually, Brazil already have a research center working with it. Actually, it's called the CDC. That's an acronym in Portuguese. But in English, it would be the Sugarcane Technology Center. This is the biggest and the largest sugarcane technology center in the world. So they already have researchers working with technology related to the sugarcane and also with the refinery of it. And what we want to do is provide even more workforce for them together with Petrobras again, because they already have people working on it. And we want to make into the 3 years to put 10 researchers there, 10 PhDs, just to start to develop even more technology. And after this period of 3 years, those researchers are going to keep working there. Like I said, Petrobras is going to keep providing all the salaries, all the laboratories, everything they need. And the CDC is also one of our partners. So we are going to work as a huge team, us, Petrobras, and the CDC. So first we had the feedstock. Then we have the refinery. But then you have to transport all that you produced to the airport itself. And for it, we face even another problem, and we have to touch on another stakeholders in order to make all the process work. And the problem is the transportation itself. The Brazilian cargo transportation matrix is highly concentrated in roadways, and that's really not compatible with the growth that Brazil is presenting in what concerns to aviation. So first, I'm going to talk quickly, just briefly, about all the options that we have, and then provide our solution. First, we start to think about the roads. Brazil is really well developed in what concerns to roads. We have roads going in all the country, and it presents a few advantages in short deliveries. It is really flexible because it goes everywhere, and you can make door-to-door deliveries. But if we start to think, it also has a lot of disadvantages. This has a really low load capacity because you depend on the trucks. It has a high infrastructure cost, and is really not environmentally friendly because when you produce a lot of CO2, and you also have the return of the empty vehicle to the point of origin, what pollutes even more and doesn't have any actual use for it. Also, it can get stuck on traffic jam, and that's a real problem in Brazil. So you can have delays, and imagine if you delay the biofuel deliver, you are going to delay all the flights, and that's going to be a huge amount of money lost. After we start to look the pipelines, the pipelines are really good for long distance. They are really reliable and constant. They don't have the empty vehicle return. They operate without stop, and they have a low variable cost, which means you don't have people actually working there all the time. And it keeps working unless you have maintenance. But the maintenance is not that constant. It just happens in a few years. But it also has disadvantages. It has a low velocity of flow. It's not that flexible. After you build it, it just goes to one point. And has a limited range of products that can go into it. And has a really high cost to implement, to actually build it. You have to buy land, you have to make the holes, you have to put the pipes there, so it's really expensive. We also have the rails. That's a really good idea if you have a medium or long distance to go. It has a low energy consumption by cargo, and it can go really fast. But again, Brazil has one big problem that we don't have that much rails there. We only have in the region of the southeast. So if we want to expand the projects in the future to reach longer distance, such as the northeast of the country or the south, we need more infrastructure. So we are going to leave that for the future. Now we are going to work with what we have. And we have to keep in mind that Brazil also has 3 different kinds of gauges to connect to the rails. And each time that you have to make these different connections is really expensive. So you have to keep that in mind. The last option would be the hydroways. And Brazil has a lot of water, as everybody knows. We have 42,000 kilometers of rivers and 7,004 kilometers of navigable coast. And recent research shows that the hydroway is 3 times cheaper and 8 times less polluted than the road transportation. It has a really low cost to use if you don't have to correct the river, if you already have the boats. But it can be really slow depending on the time, and it's not flexible at all. You need to have the river going where you want to. So with all of that in mind, all of that information, all those advantages and disadvantages, what we thought is it's really complicated to just look the amount of fuel that you have and decide what transport to choose. So what we want to do is use part of the budget to develop a software that would take in account everything that I said and even more details, think about all the traffic, all the time that you need, if you need that to come really fast or if you have available time. So the software would have as input the amount of biofuel that you want to transport, the start point, the last point, and the speed required, like I said. And then it's going to process all the information, look for the maps, for the roads, all the different options that we have, and then as an output, is going to provide the best, the optimum way to transport in an economic and environmental way. So it has to be green and it has to be cheap. Okay, applying this, if we apply this software in our pilot project, as an input, we will have the distance that is about 258 kilometers from the refinery to Uberlândia's airport, and that would notice that we have a really good road infrastructure in that region, and we even have the railways, but we have two different types of gates, so that would be, again, really expensive. We don't have a navigable river in the region, and we don't also have a pipeline, and it would be really expensive to build it because the volume of biofuel is really small. So with that, the output would be the tanker truck that will transport all the biofuel from the refinery in Colina to the airport in Uberlândia. In that case, the roads were the best option. Also, with that in mind, we thought that the main goal here is to implement the biofuel in the airplanes to make the green airport, but you can even invest in the refinery to provide biodiesel for the ground transportation used in the airport, and the APU to start the airplanes. So you can even invest in the industry to develop what they already have, so they would not be concerned to produce something that they would not sell. And with that, produce what we really want, that's the jet biofuel. With everything in mind, we have to always remember about money. So we cannot just come here and ask about money to everybody without having anybody to support us. So as our partners, as I already said, we have Petrobras. That's our biggest partner. And they're going to supply the area to build the refinery. And with that, we start to look about the BNDES, that's the Bank of Development in Brazil. This bank belongs to the government, and they work providing all the funds and all the investments necessary to develop the country. And they have a lot of proposals in what concerns to the environment, to green proposals. So they are going to provide us low interest rates and loans at medium and long term. With that, Uberlândia's airport is also going to be, as it is our pilot project, is also our partner. So all the airlines that work there, they are going to be compromised to buy all the jet biofuel that we provide. And we really expect that after the 3 years with all the research, all the development of this foundation, it is going to be affordable and everybody's going to be happy. Just a final conclusion with everything in mind, our approach is to involve all the stakeholders to start to touch in every single area involved in the process. We want to start to develop the market in a short-term project instead of just make one area really well developed. We want to develop a little bit everything, so in the long term, everybody's going to be ready and interested on it. And we really want to show that the green airport is possible. It's a reality, and Brazil is ready for it. Just quickly, I'm going to talk about the budget that I know that is really important for our judges. In the finance accounting project implementation, R&D, we're going to spend about $6.5 million. That's going to be from the project. And in that case, partners are not going to help us. Biofuel production expenses, there will be $11.7 million from the project, but we are going to have $500,000 from our partners, such as Petrobras, helping us in the production. In transport, logistics, and software, we don't want money directly from the project. We want from partners to invest in the development of the software, because that's going to be really important for the country, because we're not going to work with the software only for Uberlândia. So if we provide the software to Infraero, that is, like I said, the organization responsible for all the airports, they can keep using the software until the end of the times. And the airport of Uberlândia improvements, a few changes that we have to make there to put the biofuel and everything. is going to be in total $6.6 million. In total, summarizing, it's going to be $27.6 million. With that, I would like to thank everybody for the attention, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
So the green airport idea is really very innovative. The one thing I'm a little confused on, not being familiar with the geography of Brazil, is what are we defining as a regional airport? In terms of, I saw travel time of up to 2 hours, but I'm still a little confused.
So by regional airport that we said, it just means that it also only has domestic flights. So all the flights that goes from Uberlândia, they just stay inside of Brazil, and they mainly go to Brasilia, that's the capital of the country, Rio, São Paulo, Minas Gerais, and Belo Horizonte, that's the capital. So all the flights are inside of Brazil. So we don't want to use an airport with international flights or flights that goes pretty much everywhere in the country, because that it means that the airport's really big. And like I said, we want a smaller airport to be able to optimize the process, to find all the issues related to it, and to be able to really implement in only 3 years. Because if you have a really big airport, the budget would explode, definitely. Yeah, it's just one airport.
Kind of following on from that question or statement, it's just one airport, and you made a clear case that this is just a pilot. You're doing this as a first location. You gave a great explanation of why you chose this airport. It's a convergence of the right kind of air traffic patterns and feedstock and refining locations nearby. So you've got a good first choice. In your selection of that, did you get a feeling for how widely applicable this green airport model is? Do you have other airports in a similar situation? Do you have some airports that just you don't expect would be able to go green because they're too far away from feedstock, etc.? Can you give us some ideas about how more applicable you think your model is?
So during all our research, Uberlândia was not our first option. So actually, yeah. Better now? Yeah. Okay, so Uberlândia was not our first option. Of course, we start to think in a bunch of other different airports that we could apply our project. And actually, we started looking in Minas Gerais, in the capital, Belo Horizonte. We looked for 2 airports. One's in the region of Pampulha, that's called. It's also a medium-sized airport. And we looked for the airport of Confins, that is the international airport. And when we saw it, actually, the Confins airport would not be able to be applicable now because it's really big, it's international. But the other one would be applicable perfectly, would be exactly the same idea. And the way that we develop the projects now, it will be perfectly applicable to any medium-sized airport in the Southeast region. But for the future, we have the map shows, we also have production in the Northeast. The Southeast can provide the region in Sao Paulo. Sugarcane there can provide sugarcane enough for the Minas Gerais, São Paulo, Rio, also the south and the center of Brazil. And the rest that is developed in the Northeast could provide to the airports there, because we don't have that many international huge airports in the region. So the sugarcane, again, was chosen mainly because of it, because this feedstock can provide the biofuel for pretty much all the country. Now, the way we propose is just for a medium size, but yeah, that's perfectly scalable. It can go everywhere. Anyone from the audience? Thank you very much.